there was never a moment where Israel could ever suffer repercussions for its escalations of violence, its violent actions. Now that has changed. So now it's even weirder knowing full well that you have a country, a sovereign nation with striking capabilities that is willing and able to strike back if you strike a certain type of target. So now there are repercussions, and these guys are still behaving as though there are none, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Here's the Tel Aviv damages from early this morning for the chatters that don't know how much Iranian strikes have intensified. Iranian strikes have not increased in frequency, but its success rate has increased dramatically. Okay, the success rate of the strikes, the success of the Iranian missiles actually hitting targets inside of Tel Aviv have gone up a lot. The Iron Dome effectiveness, Iron Dome, if you were to consider like all of the arrow systems and David Sling and the THAAD anti-ballistic missile air defense systems combined, if you call all of that fucking Iron Dome, because the Iron Dome part of it is just Tamir interceptors, and they're obviously for short range missiles. They're not supposed to intercept like massive hypersonic ballistic missiles, but all of these other ballistic missile launchers that are incredibly costly, incredibly expensive, and very difficult to replenish in an expedient manner, and much more expensive than the Tamir interceptors, which are around $200,000 a pop. Shouts out to taxpayers in the United States of America, by the way, for footing the bill as always. Like, I think in spite of the fact that the Israeli Air Force has successfully targeted some of the launchers in Iran, which has actually diminished Iran's capacity to do these massive salvos, Iran has increased the intensity and increased the successful hit rate by using newer technology, and the interception rate has gone down dramatically in the process. An Israeli official has told the NBC that they only intercepted 65% of the missiles in the last 24 hours. And I don't know if that's like partially, there was some suspicion that this could be like cyber attacks on the interception systems that caused them to like deploy. There are numerous other physical ways of tricking the Iron Dome as well. Like there are obviously duds that you can send. There are ballistic missiles that you can that you can send that are specifically designed to draw attention, but they don't actually have any sort of like serious payload in them. But then also on top of, and then the goal is obviously to strike through and have the actual payload delivery missile go through. But at the end of the day, it is obvious. It's obviously looking at simply the strikes and the impact of missiles. There are some fairly successful hits that took place last night, which was, of course, early Tel Aviv morning. It is pretty wild. One of them was literally a hospital, by the way, an Israeli hospital, which was the first time, as far as I understand, that Israel was making a concerted effort to criticize bombing a hospital. I thought that was like fair play. I thought that was like the best thing you could possibly do. The more you strike hospitals, the more moral an army is, I thought. You know, I just get all my notes from Israel. But in any case, the reason why I think the hospital was struck was because partially the weapons that Iran used this time was cluster munitions. That is the suspicion here. At least like they found remnants of the missile, and it looks like it's one of those that just opens up and spreads in every direction. Like it's one of the Iranian missiles that actually has numerous warheads in it that can deploy once it reaches its. I don't know what the proper terminology is. I'm not a fucking missile autist, as you guys know. Yeah, here's Ragab Soilu talking about it. Iran used a new missile warhead today, according to a retired Israeli Colonel Ofer Cohen. This warhead has the ability to disperse small munitions instead of exploding in a concentrated manner. It disperses in the air and a few dozen munitions. The Khorram Shah 4 missile. It's similar to it's like a cluster strike. Wait, I thought clusters were a war crime also for Israel. I know that's horseshit, but still. No, it's supposed to be. It is, except for the United States of America and also Israel. Everything that Israel is complaining about right now against Iran is immediately hypocritical. Like it's fucking ridiculous. Like it's not wrong technically to say cluster munitions are supposed to be illegal for a reason, because It's not targeted, right? And when you, even if you target like a military compound or whatever, you accidentally have the capacity to blow up a non-military target, as is the case with this hospital. This is part of the reason why you're not supposed to use this. I read that the hospital is right next to a cybersecurity military building that was damaged by the shockwave. I don't think that that's the case. That is what the initial Iranian assessment was, but I don't think that that's the case. I think that this is my assessment of it, it just looks like this is a case where they lob it, they have very over where it goes. And it, Israel had struck a hospital in Iran a couple days prior as well. Anyway, shoe doesn't seem to fit on the other foot, huh? Hillel Fund, an Israeli hospital. If you spoke up about Gaza and Iran and are silent now, you are a morally bankrupt, vile human being who will have to live with your shame for the rest of your life. Your children and grandchildren will look at you and wish disdain and disgust for siding with evil. The IDF has apprehended more Hamas militants involved in the October 7th attack. There isn't a single person who took part in the October 7th massacre and who is safe. We will get to every last one, whether they're hiding in a hospital, a school, or in a palace in Qatar. Hamas terrorists continue to surrender at mass. Earlier today, terrorists emerged from the Kamal Adwan hospital, weapons in hand, waiting for the reaction of the world on this one. Those are civilians. Those are body guns. How dare Israel humiliate them this way? Dear Hamas, it's over. By the way, I remember this exact moment that he's talking about where Israel literally offered fucking nurses and shit. Israel forced all of these Palestinian men that were in the hospital, civilians, to undress and then gave them weapons, like gave one of them weapons to basically hand after they had already undressed them. It was the dumbest propaganda I have ever fucking seen in my entire life. Remember how stupid that was? When they were like, why are these naked men holding a AK-47 and then handing off the AK-47 to the Israeli military? This makes no fucking sense. This is early on. Israel has done a million other depraved things in the process and tried to pawn it off as serious things that are happening on the ground, as they simultaneously fucking destroy the media infrastructure in Gaza deliberately, destroy the healthcare infrastructure in Gaza deliberately. Israel has no leg to stand on. Israel's defenders have no grounds to defend Israel at any point. Weapons of mass destruction found in the hospital. Yeah, it's just... This is before we even consider that Israel has mandatory conscription, so technically every single person has actually joined the Israeli occupying force at some point, Because, think about it. Israel killed HasanAbi, okay? One of Palestine's most famous journalists, most famous photojournalists. And they openly stated that the reason why they killed him was because, one, he had been photographed next to Yahya Sinwar, okay? And two, he actually was documenting October 7. They said, which is journalism, documenting October 7 as a journalist was what he was doing, okay? That is his job. He was not a combatant. He was not holding a weapon. He was holding a camera. Israel knew he was holding a camera. Israel claimed that his journalism was the reason for why they assassinated him. They first blew up his tent and he somehow survived it. He was in the hospital. Israel struck the hospital to kill him and then said that the reason why they killed him was because of his participation on October 7. His participation on October 7 was literally journalism. Okay? Understand that. By that metric, if you were allowed to target people who were not enemy combatants at any point, but were simply photographed next to a high-ranking military official, that's open season for every journalist ever, okay? If you were to claim, that's why I was so frustrated when Emmanuel Fabian, IDF's correspondent for Times of Israel, was celebrating the assassination of HasanAbi. I could not believe it. I could not comprehend it. I was like, dude, you literally served in the IDF. You are the IDF correspondent for Times of Israel. You're constantly around Israeli occupying force soldiers, and you document their atrocities as a journalist. That means they could fucking dome you, It's crazy. That is not it doesn't make any sense. And up until this very moment, up until the tit for tat between Iran and Israel, there was never a moment where Israel could ever suffer repercussions for its escalations of violence, its violent actions. Now that has changed. So now it's even weirder knowing full well that you have a country, a sovereign nation with striking capabilities that is willing and able to strike back if you strike a certain type of target. So now there are repercussions, and these guys are still behaving as though there are none. And it doesn't make any sense to me. The hubris initially made sense because you're a fucking asshole. You're a genocidal monster. But the captive population of mostly children that you're murdering have no capacity to actually strike back with even force, right? But now you are actually going after a country that has the capacity to strike back. You hit a hospital, they have the capacity to strike back at a hospital. So what blows my mind in this process is that these guys are still fucking talking like they are impossible to, they are infallible, and that no one can actually retaliate at all.